In this video, we're going to be taking a look at another physical modeling synth from Ableton called Tension. Tension seeks to emulate the action of plucking or bowing or hammering a string in the real world. The parameters available allow you to create some very realistic string sounds as well as imaginary or non-real world string sounds. There are several sections to the main window called String, including Excitator, Damper, Termination, Pickup, and Body. Additionally, there's a black strip in the middle that we'll get to in a few minutes. First, let's look at the Excitator. Just like in Collision, the Excitator is what starts the sound. You can choose from a plectrum, a bow, a hammer, or a bouncing hammer. This would be something like a hammer dulcimer, where you drop a hammer onto the string and it bounces for a little while. Let's hear what the plectrum sounds like. And there are controls to change the character of the sound. For instance, we could change the protrusion, which is how much the plectrum or pick protrudes into the string. If I increase it, it protrudes into the string more. Less, it protrudes less. It's a little weaker. I can adjust the stiffness of the plectrum. And the velocity with which we pluck the string, with lower values again being softer and higher values yielding a louder sound. There's also the position of the plectrum, and then the damping control adjusts how much of the excitator's impact force is absorbed back into the excitator. So if we have a very high value, then we'll get a very loud, bright sound, and at lower settings, a softer, gentler sound. Now, these four controls can all be modulated with velocity and key tracking, as we saw in the previous plugin Collision. And then there's a fixed position box. Now, this is a very interesting box. When this is turned off, the virtual position of the excitator will change based on the length of the virtual string. So longer strings will engage the plectrum at a different spot than shorter strings. But if we put the fixed position on, then that plectrum interacts with the string in the exact same position regardless of length, and this can yield some different timbres across the length of the MIDI keyboard or the string in this case. It's a subtle difference, but it's there. The damper section applies a damping mechanism to the string. In a piano, this would be like the felts coming down to muffle the strings, or in another string instrument, it could be a finger or something else dampening the sound. And so we can adjust the damper mass and stiffness for different damping qualities. We can adjust the position of the damping mechanism, where it is on the string. And again, we have another damping control that adjusts the strength or stiffness of the damping mechanism. Now, if the mass, stiffness, and damping all have high values, this can result in some unexpected timbres. So it's important to explore the sounds and the parameters as you come to them. Now notice that the velocity control is grayed out. If I turn the gated button on, then that becomes active. And what the gated control does is it allows you to play a note without damping, and then the damping is applied when you let go of the key. If I turn this damping parameter down, that bouncing will go away. At the bottom here, we have the termination section. This is designed to mimic the action of fingers on frets. And we have controls for finger mass, finger stiffness, and fret stiffness. We also have a pickup section designed to mimic the spot on a string where a pickup would be to go into an amp, and you can change that between 50 and 0%. Almost sounds like a pulse wave. And then we have a body section. This gives the string a resonant body, and you can choose from piano, guitar, violin, or just a generic resonating body. Once you choose your body, you can choose from sizes, from extra small all the way up to extra large. There are some additional settings for the body parameter, including decay and low and high cut filters. And then this interesting knob sets the balance between the string excitator section and the body section. So more body will yield a more resonant sound, and more string will yield a sharper attack with less resonance. Finally, there's a master volume at the end. Now in the middle here, we have some additional controls for the string itself, this virtual string, including decay, ratio, which is the ratio between the string's decay time during the note onset and the note release. And this is kind of a difficult parameter to describe, so I'm just going to mess with it and you can see what it does. So at higher values, it's going to override this decay setting, but at lower values, it will line up more with this decay setting. You can add inharmonics, which we saw in collision as well. And there is a damping amount here for string self-damping, how the string naturally dampens itself and stops vibrating. Now, this is a lot to remember, all of these controls. And at this time, I want to point out this info view box. It's very handy. If it's not open, you can choose to open it with the arrow in the lower left-hand corner. And then as you mouse over a parameter, it will describe what that parameter does in the info view box. The last section in this tab is the vibrato section, and this is exactly what it sounds like. It applies a dedicated LFO for vibrato. You can set a delay time, an attack time for the vibrato envelope, a rate, an amount, and some modulation and error settings here. We'll add a bit of randomization to your vibrato. In the second tab, we have the filter and global controls. There's a standard filter here with standard modes, including low pass, band pass, notch, high pass, and this very interesting formant filter. There is a resonance control built into each filter. There's an envelope and an LFO specifically for this filter with dedicated controls underneath them, in addition to key tracking modulation. In the global section, you can tune your MIDI keyboard. You can tune the octave, the semitone. You can detune it. You can also change the tuning system with these stretch and error parameters, adjust the pitch bend, and allocate a number of voices between 1 and 32. If you were to run out of voices, for instance, if you played 3 notes with only 2 voices, the priority box would determine which notes were kept and which notes were dropped. Either the highest pitch, the lowest pitch, or the most recent pitch. That determines which takes priority. Just like some other plugins, there's a unison setting here, and you can adjust that to have either 2 or 4 voices with a relative percentage of detuning and delay. And finally, there's a portamento box here that allows you to add glide in between notes. If I turn the legato on, then the portamento will only be in effect when notes overlap. There are a lot of possibilities with tension for creating interesting and unique sounds, and we'll take a look at some of those in the next video.